South Asia, where India is intensifying its global outreach under Operation Sindoor, sending multi-party delegations to 32 countries to present its firm stance against cross-border terrorism. An all-party delegation led by GDU Member of Parliament Sanjay Kumar Jha has departed from Delhi and is bound for Japan, Indonesia, Malaysia, South Korea and Singapore. Another team, led by Shiv Sena MP Shrikant Shinde, will leave today for the UAE, Liberia, Congo and Sierra Leone. These missions are part of a coordinated national initiative, not a political campaign, as clarified by Union Minister Kiren Rijiju. The remaining delegations will be headed by prominent leaders, including Congress's MP Shashi Tharoor, BJP's Ravi Shankar Prasad and Baijaykant's Panda, DMK's Kanimosa and Karandi. One group is scheduled to visit the EU headquarters in Brussels. Each delegation carries a detailed dossier outlining Pakistan's decades-long support for terrorism and India's decisive new counter-terror doctrine post-Operation Sindoor. The briefing highlights attacks like the 2008 Mumbai carnage and global incidents such as 9/11 and the 2005 London bombings, which also had links to Pakistan. Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri briefed delegates during a recent parliamentary standing committee session outlining India's diplomatic goals and the importance of global support following the April the 22nd Pahalgam terror attack that killed 26 civilians. We're now joined by Ambassador Suresh Goel, former diplomat who's located in New Delhi. Ambassador Goel, thank you very much for joining us. I want to just get your insight on the importance of these delegations being sent out to the rest of the world and why it's important that it's a cross-party mission and not a single government party mission. What are your thoughts?
Good evening, Thomas. Okay, now the delegations are obviously important considering that they comprise mostly the members of parliament or experts or those who have been ministers before and therefore who have an intimate knowledge of India's strategic affairs and the dynamics, foreign policy dynamics. One delegation comprises former Minister Salman Khurshid, even though he's not a member of parliament. There are others also. And each delegation comprises former Indian Foreign Service officers, senior retired ambassadors, who obviously will be advising the delegation and contributing to the work of the delegation. So they are obviously important considering if the government of India had chosen to send such senior delegations. What I would really feel at the same time is that the delegations' work would have a clearer and much better return and expectations, and if we had clear objectives in mind as to what these delegations are expected to achieve. If the objective is simply to inform the other countries about India's position, the new doctrines in terms of dealing with Pakistan and dealing with international terrorism, if it is simply providing information and briefing the foreign governments, I do think that the ambassadors, Indian ambassadors in those countries, would have done an equally good job. Of course, these are senior members of parliament, but it should not be just exchange of information on briefing the other countries. I think the objectives of the delegation should be more than what actually is believed to be in terms of briefing the other governments. Thomas.
Ambassador Goel, how have you analysed the international reaction to Operation Sindoor post the ceasefire deal, and how do you think New Delhi will measure the outreach worked?
Now, I I was hoping that this question would be answered by the government and not me on the television. However, coming back to the issues really in mind, you spoke about Operation Sindoor. I think uh, the government of India's position after Pahalgam was clearly articulated. Many countries understood what our position is. There was a lot of sympathy. There was a lot of understanding for the anger which came up, not just in the government, but among people and the other sections of the society on what happened in Pahalgam. Uh, when we launched Operation Sindoor, uh, I did, it was not a very pleasant thing, but I did notice that suddenly most of the countries, with the exception of very, very rare one or two, suddenly began to really look at the picture in terms of not international terrorism perpetrated by Pakistan in India, but they began to look at it as an issue between India and Pakistan, as an old Kashmir issue, completely forgetting that Kashmir was a symptom. Kashmir was not the real issue. The real issue was how Pakistan wanted to degrade and to diminish India by using international terrorism. And that was completely lost sight of. So I think if we want to really do something about the delegations, we need to focus on two things. Number one, Pakistan to be dealt with by the international community as a perpetrator of international terrorism. And in that process, whatever means need to be adopted by cutting down on the finances, by cutting down or by taking measures which would impact on Pakistan government's functioning, including economic measures, sanctions, IMF loans, and so forth, so that uh, Pakistan can realize the gravity of what they have done. That is number one. Number two, and that is the most important thing, I believe. Uh, Pakistan is using, or Pakistan army, not the Pakistan government, which has become a complete stooge to the army really. Pakistan army uses international terrorism in India because they find that they are not able to diminish India in any other way, not by the direct conflict through the armies, or they will use nuclear blackmail. I think the more effective means would be to degrade and decapitate the Pakistani army so that they cannot ever undertake these kind of ventures in the future.
Ambassador Goel, obviously there's one word at the centre of this, and that word is terrorism. We've mentioned it a few times. Do you think the world?
Yes.
Do you think the world understands? Obviously, there was while the tensions were at their peak. There are issues over international news outlets using that word, and even when the Pahalgam attack happened, there was the use of the word gunman, the use of the word militant, used very heavily by mainstream Western media outlets. Do you think the world now understands the severity and the idea of terrorism, of the Pakistani-backed terrorism that occurred on that 22nd date, or do you think that this international tour is trying to seal the deal in regards to that?
Now that is the issue here, and I think I'm so happy that you are articulating it in the way that you have done. No, I find it rather, in fact, disturbing that the USA began to articulate the concerns about the terrorism when it happened in September 9/11 happened in the USA. Even though after that they found that Osama bin Laden was hiding in Pakistan, that is where he was caught, in Abbottabad. Even though they found that there were many other terrorists who were actually hiding in Pakistan, but somehow they begin to look at the international terrorism not as terrorism per se, but as something which happens from time to time, but it doesn't impact on them. USA doesn't talk about international terrorism anymore. The UK doesn't talk about. Canada actually gives refuge to Khalistani international terrorists. And therefore, I think that is the issue really. But as you say, the international community does not look at terrorism as a real issue here. And that is what they need to do, that it is not something impacting only India, but it is something that affects the entire universe.
Ambassador Goel, thank you very much for joining us. I do apologise, we have run out.